Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, wherever you're tuning in from. Today I have a special guest, and it's a special day for our guest today because before we get into Stan Wawrinka, Basel last week, and all that, I do just want to introduce Simon as a co-author of a new book. Simon, just give me a few minutes on what's happening today and your new book.
Yeah, it's a really exciting day because our new book, The Roger Federer Effect, is out now today. So it was ready to pre-order, and now today you can order it. And we've been working on that for a little bit more than 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
My dear friend Simon Chambers from the UK and me, and like it's a different book because we don't talk about everything that's happened. It's not a biography, but it's more like how he has influenced people on so many levels. So we've spoken to friends, former coaches, rivals, other players like Tsitsipas or Berrettini, etc.
Mm-hmm.
To other sports people, we've spoken to a world famous violinist,
Mm-hmm.
to a writer, to a politician. So it's kind of a fans. So we just wanted to show how many people on so many levels Roger has influenced, and by telling their stories, I think we also tell the story of the phenomenon Roger Federer, and we just tell the story of what a person he is, because we've obviously spoken to people that are very close to him.
Yeah.
So there's so it's an exciting day. It's you could order it today, and I think it's quite a good book to for all the Federer and tennis fans coming to terms with his retirement.
Simon, you're a journalist in Switzerland. How easy was it to get to know Roger the person over the last 2 decades or so?
Very easy. I mean, of course, as you know, during the tournaments there are all the restrictions, but I mean, we always got to talk to Roger in his native language, and
Yeah.
even though he speaks great English and French, it's different because you just hear more, and I think he also reveals more
Mm-hmm.
in his native language in Swiss German. And I mean, we've had many one-on-one interviews over the years with him, and I also met him from time to time, just by accident. For example, at the indoor swimming pool here at my place, or the last few months he's been playing tennis with his girls in my club just up the hill, like a 5 minutes walk.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw him there, and I just ran into him from time to time, and he's so I was very privileged, and it was I hope to run into him in the future as well, of course.
Yeah, I'm sure he mentioned, he'll be back on the tour in some capacity, if you like, obviously not a playing capacity. But before we get into Stan Wawrinka, we are here mainly to talk about him. I do have sort of one more thing to comment on Federer. There's been so many thoughts, but it is now 5 weeks since we last saw him in a public environment, if you like. How do you think he's taking the retirement? I think many of us were moved by some of the images we saw that weekend in London for the Laver Cup. And we have just had the tournament in Basel. He decided to stay away from that tournament. How do you think about that decision, and how do you think he's taking this whole experience right now?
I think it was very difficult the months before, because I knew he couldn't really practice, and he knew it was going to end, but he didn't really. He just kind of pushed back the definite decision. I wrote a story during the US Open, just like hinting that this might be it, and he didn't, like, because I know people who know him well, and they said no way he's going to come back to the tour. So it's been really difficult for him. I think he was relieved once it was out, once he took the decision. And a friend of mine met him at a birthday party of a mutual friend, and he said he was very relaxed.
Okay.
And I think Roger is really good at turning the page. But from what I heard now, like the Laver Cup, there was stirring all these emotions, and was quite tough to swallow for him, because he's a very emotional guy, and tennis is so, the whole tour, life on tour, all the people he's met, they are so dear, they're dear to his heart. And I think it's quite difficult. I think that's why he also said, I can't do Basel now. There's so much going on. I think he was in Dubai. I'm not sure if he's still there, to kind of get some distance from everything. I think he was relieved once he took the definite decision, but the Laver Cup, I think, was quite difficult to swallow for him, because there was so much going on in his head, and now it's over. Like, new life has started. And even though he's Roger and he's really good at turning the page, I think it's quite difficult. So he's been very quiet. It's right now, it's not possible to talk to him as a journalist, and I think we just have to give him time, and I think time heals wounds, as you say.
As we do say. Do you say something similar in Swiss German too?
Zeit heilt Wunden, or High German,
Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Simon. All right, listen, somebody who was in Basel last week, aside from yourself, of course, Simon, was Stan Wawrinka. What did you make of his week as a whole? I mean, some pretty standout results. First of all, beating Casper Ruud, US Open finalist and top 5 player in the world. The match against Nakashima was a roller coaster, and obviously in front of the home crowd, that adds to the environment, and an incredible 3-set win there. Couldn't quite get it done against Bautista Agut, but it was a super close match despite being straight sets. What did you make of his week as a whole, and any highlights from those 3 matches?
I love your pronunciation of Wawrinka.
Was it any good? Was I close?
No, it's great. It's kind of adds a different some sparkle. The Wawrinka. Okay. It's like no, it's good. I mean, it was so much fun to see him winning again and playing. I mean, the match against Ruud was unbelievable. He just hit winners from every part of the court, and it was just like good old Wawrinka tennis again, like just putting pressure on his opponent and just going for his shots. That was amazing to see. I thought Nakashima was a good match too. Maybe not as straightforward, but I think Nakashima, I mean, on the day was a more difficult opponent than Ruud, because Ruud, he seemed to be quite tired and not really inspired. So I think Nakashima was a bigger challenge, and he handled it well, and pulled it out in 3 sets. I mean, I didn't think he would win the third after he had squandered the lead in the second. So that was a strong mental performance by Stan. I mean, Bautista Agut was a very close match. Still very good tennis. I thought all the 3 matches were really good, and I was surprised that he could play at such a level consistently in Basel, where so I think it's Stan can play. I knew Stan can still play well, but can he do it day after day? And he did that. So that was really nice to see.
The Bautista Agut match could really have gone either way, as we can see even on our screens right now. It was 8-6, I think, or 7-5. So in the second set tiebreaker, so super close, and really.
And he was up in the tiebreaker. He was up, I think, 5-3.
Yeah.
And kind of had one or two soft shots there in the tie and on the match point as well. But that shows like maybe he's not used to those situations anymore, But like a tiebreaker, really tight tiebreaker. But I mean, the level of his play was really encouraging.
You obviously came across him a few times last week in the press conference, at least anyway. And you also had an interesting encounter with Magnus Norman, right?
Well, I didn't speak to him. I saw him in the players' lounge where I interviewed two young Swiss players, Jerome Kim and Leandro Riedi, and I saw Magnus, and I was surprised to see him. And obviously, you're as a journalist, you're not supposed to talk to like everyone when you're there, but rather just do the interviews that you were assigned to. But we said hello, and it was I didn't ask him like what's he doing here, and then I asked Stan in the press conference afterwards, and he said, well, we're back together again. Which was he could have said that before, but he obviously waited for someone to ask him the question, which is great news because Magnus is the perfect coach for him, has been the perfect coach, guided him to 3 Grand Slam titles, and he's so calm and always believed in Stan and just finds the right words. And when Stan is upset, like he can calm him down and kind of give him direction. And now, like that they are back again shows to me that Stan is really serious about putting together another good year, which is great news. And he really believes in it. And Magnus obviously knows Stan better than anyone on the tennis court, and knows him really well off the court as well. And he must believe in Stan to pull off something next year. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done that. He has his academy in Sweden, and it's quite a commitment from his side as well. So that's really good news. And I really like Magnus. I think he's an excellent coach.
Yeah, and Stan is 37, won't be turning 38 until March. What is a good year, do you think, for Stan? What are the realistic ambitions for Stan and Magnus as a team next year?
Well, I mean, let's say realistic, probably returning to the top 50. And I think what he's dreaming about is a deep run in a Grand Slam tournament. I think that's what he... Like Andy Murray dreams of that too.
Yep.
And why not? I think it's best of 5, but you always have a day in between the matches, so you can recover physically. I think it's more of a mental thing to really believe that you can do it again. And I mean, Stan has beaten since he came back. Like he hadn't touched the racket for a year. After his foot surgery, he beat Medvedev, Tiafoe, he beat Ruud now, and Nakashima. So he's beat a few really good players. And I think the question is, will his body hold up? He at the U.S. Open, he had to retire after being 2 sets down against Corentin Moutet. So because he had cramps, so that wasn't a great sign. Maybe dealing with the heat might be an issue, but I think he can still push the best players.
That win against Medvedev 3 or 4 weeks ago, along with these wins against Nakashima and Casper Ruud, I think that really is it's not a turning point, but it's an interesting mark in the sand, shall we say, compared to, say, as you say, with the last few years. I mean, probably they're the 3 most impressive results for Stan, certainly this year, that I can think of off the top of my head. And that win against Medvedev, of course, is put into even better light, bearing in mind how good Medvedev was in Astana, and then, of course, this week in Vienna as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I think on a given day, Stan can beat anyone, probably except for Well, you never know. I mean, he could play. He could beat Novak as well. He was a really difficult player for Novak when he was at his best.
He was, yeah.
He beat him in 2 Grand Slam finals. I mean,
Yeah.
and I mean the French Open finals against Novak in what was it, 2015? I guess that was
Yep.
probably the best tennis I've ever seen anyone play. I mean, that was just absolutely out of his mind.
Yeah. I mean, also he was wearing amazing shorts that day as well, that just capped off the victory that I know Novak has joked about since. Yeah. So Stan obviously is going to be playing, I think he's playing actually today or tomorrow against Holger Rune in Paris. Now, Holger Rune is obviously someone who's had an excellent week himself, or getting to the final in Basel. Tell me about the Basel week and the experience as a whole there. I mean, certainly for the Wawrinka matches, the stadium came alive. But obviously, there was no Federer there this year. Was there any kind of feeling of a cloud or negativity going into the tournament, or were the Swiss quite excited about seeing some of the other players on show?
I think it was quite a positive week. Obviously, people would have loved to see Federer at least say goodbye on Tuesday night, but he wasn't ready for that. I thought it was a very, very positive tournament. Everyone knows it's not easy after the Federer era, but I mean, I think it was as good as it could be without him. I mean, Stan played 3 matches and the crowd was really excited. We also had another Swiss, Marc-Andrea Hüsler. He's number 1 now in Switzerland, and he pushed Felix quite hard in the first round. So there's a few young Swiss players coming up. So I think the interest is not gone, and I was pleasantly surprised how much the people were into the matches, even on when Stan was out on Saturday in the semifinals and in the finals. And what they did well is they presented the new players. I mean, not the next generation, but rather like the new generation. Like Alcaraz was there. He wasn't as fresh as he would have liked, probably. Rune was quite exciting. Felix played an unbelievable week. So I think those are new players that people are starting to discover. And I think that's a good strategy from Basel. I mean, they don't want the kind of middle-aged guys that have been there 3 or 4 years now, but they rather want to have the people discover the new faces. And I think they appreciate that. I mean, it's, when you see Rune for the first time, how explosive he is and how exciting as a player and as a character he is, I think it's fun. Felix is, I mean, is an unbelievable player, and I think people like his how he acts on the court, very calm and very composed, kind of a Roger kind of way. So, and obviously he was born on the same day as Roger.
Yeah,
a few years later.
He mentioned Roger in his off-court interview
yeah,
and also
exactly.
how he thought of him yesterday morning, I think, before taking to the court. So there was still the Federer thing was still there. I think I saw 1 or 2 placards in the stadium.
Yeah. Of course,
I mean, I think it was a good week as a whole. I think that we have these 2 tournaments, going together with Vienna and Basel. I do wonder why they don't make the time slightly different. So I think one started at 2:00 Central European time, and the other one was at 3:00. I don't know why they don't just put it back another hour so we can maybe get to see both matches. But they were you in Basel yesterday, by the way, for the final?
No, yesterday I wasn't there. No.
Okay.
No.
What did you make of that, and what did you make of Felix as a whole? He's been pretty impressive the last few weeks.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, I was actually quite disappointed he didn't do well in the slams this year. I thought this could be his breakthrough year, and it wasn't. And I mean, that he's an amazing player. We all know that. And I think the next step will be to show it on the big stage. I mean, he's got all the tools, obviously. So I mean, but putting it together over 2 weeks, 2 weeks of a Grand Slam, that will be a different beast. But I mean, I love him as a player, and I think he's a really likable person. So he's really good for the game.
Back to Stan, because we are still sort of mainly talking about him. How has it been for him the last couple of years? As you said, you touched on it earlier, Simon. He didn't even touch a racket for a year. I mean, what is that like for any professional sports person, and Stan in particular?
I mean, I think you have to be Stan or to withstand that and come back. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Like the will he has is just amazing. You know, like he just didn't want it to be the end, so he just stuck to it. He was in Paris doing all the rehab stuff with Paris Saint-Germain, the French football club. He had very good facilities and people there, and I mean, not touching a racket for a year, that must be so difficult for a player at his age. I mean, he's not 24. And coming back really speaks volumes of his desire to show again what he can do. And I mean, you know the famous quote on his arm about always coming back, failing better. You know, so I mean, he's. I think that's his life story. You know, just coming back all the time and just proving people wrong. And I have to be honest, I didn't really believe he could play that well again after he had to after he lost at the US Open after 2 sets that he had to finish his match. So I think he's proven wrong so many people, me included, of course. But he has an amazing will. He was never the biggest talent, but he just did it with his will, and I mean, winning 3 Grand Slam titles, it's just an amazing achievement in this era.
You've got your book, Simon, that comes out today, The Federer Effect. What we all know that even non-tennis fans, you know, Federer walking down the streets of Basel, Zurich, or Geneva, he's going to get recognized by someone who doesn't even like the sport or not a fan of sport. What about Stan, though? Is he somebody in Switzerland that can transcend the sport a bit, or how do the tennis fans feel about him? Bearing in mind he's in Switzerland, I imagine he's been in the shadow, obviously, of Roger throughout most of his career.
Well, I think many people like him. He's kind of he's not anti-Roger, but he has a different. Just had a different path, and he wasn't maybe the biggest talent, and he still made his way. So I think people like the message of his career and of his just like his will and achieving so many things. What was interesting, like now that Roger wasn't here, I think he was more appreciated in Basel than before. It used to be Roger's tournament, and now kind of people discovered Stan or took him to their hearts a little bit more. And I think he really appreciated that. He said, after the first match, he said, I never felt an atmosphere like that in Switzerland towards me. And so that was really nice to see. And I think that might play a role in his career. He might want to continue as long as possible, you know, and experience that again. He said when he left Basel, like, see you next year. So that's on his mind. Playing again next year, so I think he's well liked, but I mean, I don't think you can say it was difficult for him to be in the shadow. I think for some reason, it was good for him because Roger showed what is possible. And Roger and Stan were always friends, and Stan is not like Stan doesn't like to share himself as much as Roger does. Like
Okay.
he doesn't give as many interviews. He doesn't reveal as much in the interviews. So I think he was quite fine being in the shadow
Yeah.
for a long time. But of course, he appreciates the love of the people, and I think people have always appreciated him in Switzerland, of course. But
and elsewhere. I mean, listen, you're right. He does come across as a bit more of a shy personality. Roger seems to be a much more comfortable person in front of the camera, et cetera, et cetera. But I already touched on the shorts at Roland Garros, but I've also seen some funny videos that he's done of I think himself in a living room in about 20 different positions as he's relaxing, watching TV. Yeah. So he's got a personality, and I'm really pleased, as you said, that he got that love last week, and I'm sure he felt it. And who knows, maybe there's as you say, a really long or deep run at a Grand Slam next year, and maybe even a title of some sort as well. That would be a great way, as I don't want to say we're at the end yet. As you said, he's going to say hello again to Basel again next year, but be a great way as we come into the twilight of his career to give it a nice polished finish.
Yeah, and I think if once he gets deep, or again to do a second week of a Grand Slam tournament, I think people will probably rally behind him. I mean, we love those stories of athletes, coming back after a really hard time, and I think almost all of the Roger fans just loved his 2017. Say that was their biggest his biggest win, 2017 at the Australian Open. So I mean, Stan coming back and really going deep into a Grand Slam would be an amazing story.
Yeah, maybe happening in Australia, maybe in Paris. Who knows? Simon, listen, I really appreciate your time today. Obviously, we've already touched upon it. It is a big day for you with your book, The Roger Federer Effect, coming out today. It's available online, bookstores. Pitch Publishing is the publisher, and I'm sure it's available on many other platforms. Any other final thoughts, either on your book or on Stan itself?
Well, I think tennis continues even after Roger retired. And I think that's also in Switzerland and also for me. But obviously, it's been an amazing ride with Roger for the last 20 years. And it was quite a journey to write this book together with Simon Chambers. And I really hope people like it. I'm a very you don't know how people react to a book, and obviously I'm very excited to see the comments or the reviews, etc. Now that it's out. I mean, I've read it like 10 times now with all the editing and stuff. So and I still have to smile, or I still like to read it. So I think that's a good. It's a good sign. So it's very different from everything that's been written about Roger. So I really hope people like it.
I'm sure they will, Simon, and we look forward to reading that. I know I'm going to be getting a copy very soon because I'm going to be speaking to your co-author in the next week or two about the book and how that came about. Listen, Simon, thanks for your time today, and I'm sure we'll cross paths again sometime soon.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Thanks for your invitation.
Thank you very much. Take care, Simon.
Take care. Thank you.